no need for displacement, no need to wake up in the middle of the night, come back to a flooded home. So we can solve all that.
All right. Welcome, everybody. I am Jason Hull, the founder and CEO of DoorGrow, the world's leading and most comprehensive coaching and consulting firm for long-term residential property management entrepreneurs. Today, my guest is Nadav Schnall. Welcome, Nadav.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
All right. So your company's called ProCentry, and we're going to be getting into that. But before we chat about our topic today, tell us a little bit about your background.
So my background is actually in property management. I was a property manager for about a decade for First Service Residential in New York City. I had their kind of group or luxury division. So I did a lot of consulting for developers and a lot of property management, opening buildings, placing staff, making sure buildings kind of transition from construction to operation. Then I went into and opened another company that had to do with the service industry, kind of fire suppression systems, mechanicals, kind of the heart of a building, so to speak. And that led me to connect with my co-founder and business partner, John Ross, to do this idea. So really very much so kind of experiencing firsthand what we are trying to solve. And that's kind of how I got into the world of entrepreneurship and into the world of ProCentry.
Got it. All right. Thanks for the backgrounds. You're an expert in smart building monitoring. We're going to chat about exploring how innovative water and gas leak detection systems are transforming residential property management, and maybe share how these technologies can prevent costly damage, protect tenants, streamline maintenance operations for property managers, from boosting safety to increasing operational efficiency. I'm excited to get into this. Where do we start?
Well, we can probably start in property management. And,
Okay.
I can tell you how many times I would wake up in the morning and I'd be, checking my phone and then find that, I have emails from last night that there was a leak in the building, or my super calling me at 2:00 in the morning saying, hey, we had a flood, or someone, there's a construction going on and someone left a window open and some pipe froze. And so that's kind of where it started for me. Kind of really looking into these operational issues, which in today's day and age with technology, you are able to solve. Really trying to look at properties and saying, how can we help common day-to-day occurrences? More so, you look at the insurance industries, and that's one of the biggest pluses that we try to bring to the table is try to helping buildings with insurance. And non-weather related water leaks are typically the top 3 causes for insurance claims. There is technology out there. There is ways to substantially reduce that. How do we do that? Improve the day-to-day work of property managers, reduce insurance claims for buildings, reduce insurance rates and premiums, and also improve the life of the residents and tenants that live within. No need for displacement, no need to wake up in the middle of the night, come back to a flooded home. So we can solve all that, and we focus in multifamily.
Yeah, if something goes unchecked, somebody's out of town, there's a water leak, it can just do massive damage. So how do we mitigate that?
Yeah, so I can tell you a little bit about the technology and what we do and how we do it. So first of all, traditional systems that were existed so far were really based on Wi-Fi, which is a big difference. And they were more geared towards maybe something that you would do for your house or maybe something you would do for your apartment. But how do you resolve that in a multifamily world, right? Where even if I am the most responsible resident in the building and I put water leak detection and temperature and humidity and maybe gas, you put all detection technologies in your apartment, you can still get leaked on from your apartment above. Something can still happen. And then you just said it, right? A resident that may be away. And so we had this actually. This is an actual claim that we were able to avoid in a building. Someone, it was a vacant apartment. A realtor came in to show the apartment, walked out to the terrace. It was a classic wintry day. Didn't close the door all the way. Realtor left and came in, blew the apartment door open, and the temperature started going down and going down and going down. Luckily, that building had ProCentry, and that building was notified when the temperatures hit about 50 degrees. And, the resident manager of that building got the notification today, that doesn't sound right. Of course, checked the records, found out that it was a vacant apartment, ran upstairs, saw that the door was open, was able to close the door, turn on the heat before frozen pipes. But otherwise, you would have had a frozen pipe, and that could have easily knocked out 10 apartments with insurance claims and so on and so forth. So I think that's kind of one of the biggest areas where we can save. And the nice part about that is insurance carriers are starting to recognize us and starting to recognize that we are actually reducing claims inside buildings. We're doing that across the board. We recently did a study across 18 months. We took a bunch of properties and we wanted to see what happened in those properties across an 18-month period. We alerted those properties to over 6,000 different types of water events, right? Whether it's water or, it could be some of it can be just be drizzling, some of it could be, a condensate drain in an HVAC unit overflowing, right? So different types of leaks. And then we followed up with the properties. Not one of those buildings and any of those water events resulted in an insured claim. And so we were able to actually prove to the insurance world that this is a risk mitigative tool. And actually the service that we provide, we like to call it risk mitigation as a service.
Yeah.
And by doing that, we've been able to help several buildings either move from kind of E&S, excess and surplus insurance policies over to admitted carriers, which of course are substantially cheaper, or just simply being able to reduce insurance rates, right? And so we can help properties both on the operation side, the maintenance side, but also on the insurance side.
That sounds very fascinating. So I can see how this would be very important. So if the insurance companies are not having to do anything on these claims, then you would think they would be very incentivized to get people to implement this.
Yes, 100%. In New York City, we work with a number of carriers that provide anywhere from 3% up all the way up to 12% premium reductions year over year on your homeowner's insurance policy. So if you have a building and let's say there's 100 apartments, if you happen to be insured with one of these insurance carriers, you will receive a discount on your premium year over year. So the ROI is right there. And then, of course, we can help on the underlying building insurance policy as well.
Got it. Okay. So that's obviously a benefit for the property owner, right? What are the benefits for the property manager?
The obvious would be peace of mind, right? Because at the end of the day, the responsibility of a property manager is to make sure that the building is operating properly, to mitigate damages, to mitigate risks. And so the advantages of the property manager, first of all, you're able to see what happens in your entire building. So you'll have a dashboard. You'll be able to see each one of our sensing technologies. And I think we've heavily focused so far on water leak detection and maybe temperature detection, which is really, these are one of our biggest sellers. But we do anything from water to gas to oil leaks to mechanical malfunctions, environmental issues, even rodents. So we have a lot. By installing a system like this, it gives you a lot of peace of mind and saves you a lot of time.
So less damage, less work for the property manager, less stress in having to deal with frustrated owners, frustrated tenants. Yeah, so win-win all the way around. So you had mentioned a few things that this equipment can sense for. So could you go over all those for us?
Yeah, sure. So 100%. First of all, what we use a technology called LoRaWAN. LoRaWAN stands for Long Range Wide Area Network. So it's very similar to Wi-Fi in the sense that it is a wireless technology that we can communicate over this wireless network that it creates. But indifferent than Wi-Fi, it has a couple of major differences, which is huge for buildings, huge for properties, right? If you're doing property management in a multifamily residential building and you have to access every single apartment, no one wants to start running electricity or opening walls. It has to be really easy to deploy, and you come in and come out under 10 minutes. That's what you're looking to do. So this technology, LoRaWAN, what it does is it is a very strong frequency. So the advantage is it can penetrate brick, mortar, concrete, steel, whatever inside a building. And you can use one of these gateways. Gateways are similar to what we would call in the Wi-Fi world as like a router. So you would sell one of those every maybe 3 to 6 floors, I would say, as opposed to a traditional router where you put it in an apartment, you have one for the entire apartment. The downside to it is that you can't stream a lot of data on it. So it's great for the world of IoT and the world of sensors because you don't have to put on that. You just need to say, what is the temperature? Am I having a leak? Do I have this or do I have something else? So that is a very, very important advantage that this technology has over traditional systems, which rely on Wi-Fi. The other big thing it has is that extremely energy efficient. So each one of our sensors will last for about 10 years on battery life. Whereas traditional Wi-Fi systems, you probably have to replace the battery once a year, once every 2 years, depending on the system. As far as our offerings, we have different liquid sensing technology, so oil and water. We also have gas detection, temperature, humidity we spoke about. We have rodents. We have different types of sensing. For example, if you want to see the levels of different tanks. So for example, you have a big water storage tank, or you want to know what the capacity is of trash or different. So we have devices that can sense distance, different sensors for different types of mechanical equipment to see where they go, what the status is. Are they operating? Are they not? Are they in movement? Steam traps, we can tell you if a steam trap open. So there's a lot of stuff there. And so we go out and we figure out what sensing technologies exist for the world, and we customize them for the buildings themselves.
Got it. Is this system also tie into some of the other sort of catastrophes besides water, like fire, smoke?
So we have a smoke and vape detector, but it is not what you would call your traditional carbon monoxide type of sensor. And that is because, first of all, it's a very saturated market there. So we do have on the property, on the platform. And that is a great sensing technology, especially for like rental buildings or buildings that have passed no smoking laws in the building. So it can do vaping, it could do marijuana, it could do cigarette smoke.
Cool. So I'm going to read a word from our sponsor, and then I have some more questions we'll get into. This episode is sponsored by Vendaroo. So many of you tell me that maintenance is probably the least enjoyable part of a property manager and definitely the most time consuming. But what if you could cut that workload by up to 85%? That's exactly what Vendaroo has achieved. They've leveraged cutting-edge AI technology to handle nearly all your maintenance tasks, from initiating work orders and troubleshooting to coordinating with vendors and reporting. This AI doesn't just automate, it becomes your ideal employee, learning your preferences and executing tasks flawlessly, never needing a day off and never quitting. This frees up you to focus on the critical tasks that really move the needle for you and your business, whether that's refining operations, expanding your portfolio, or even just taking a well-deserved break. So over half the room at last year's DoorGrow Live conference signed up with Vendaroo right then and there. After hearing about it, a year later, they're not just satisfied, they're raving about how Vendaroo has transformed their business. Don't let maintenance drag you down. Step up your property management game with Vendaroo. Visit vendaroo.ai. That's VENDOROO.ai/DoorGrow today and make this the last maintenance hire you'll ever need. All right, cool. So back to what you were talking about, Nadav. I'm curious. This sounds like a no-brainer. Is this expensive to get set up? Can this be turned into a profit center for property managers in some way?
So excellent questions. As far as the cost goes, it is very competitive in the marketplace. Sensors start at about $70 a sensor, depending on what it is. There is a cost for the network, but again, it is not a significant cost. The costs kind of vary based on the size of the building, and obviously there's volume discounts. But I think from a profit center, it's an interesting question, right? Because I don't know if you're actively going to make money, from the building from activating the system. However, you will get a return on your investment because, again, you're able to, first of all, reduce repair costs. There's no question about that. And on the insurance front, which is really, one of our biggest areas that we're focused on, is trying to help buildings reduce insurance costs. And so in that sense, it does turn into a profit center, maybe not the traditional profit center as a fee for it, but you do save on other repairs on insurance costs.
So you've mentioned multifamily. There are a lot of people that listen to this podcast that also do single family residential, or maybe they do individual condos, or they do short-term rentals or Airbnbs. Do you find that this makes sense for those scenarios as well?
100%, it does. We focus only on multi-dwelling. In other words, we're a B2B company in that sense, unless maybe there's a situation where there's someone who manages multiple individual condos, let's say, right? Or multiple Airbnbs, and they want everything on kind of a dashboard, and maybe that would make sense. There are solutions out there that focus on the single family world, that are Wi-Fi based, and they're meant for that. And we are really more of a commercial grade solution, right? And that's kind of how we set ourselves up. And that is really the big differentiator with us, is that we're really focused on whole building solutions. We have automatic water shutoff valves, for example, which I haven't even mentioned before. But for example, we have a commercial building where the building owners have no one at the building over the weekend, and actually no one in the building after, I think it's 7 or 8 p.m. till they come back at like 6 or 7 in the morning. So they proactively shut the water to the building when they leave and no one's there. So they don't even want to take the risk. Of course, all of our sensors can connect to the automatic shutoff valve and say, hey, if there is a leak, we'll shut that off. We'll shut the water off. They just put it on a schedule and proactively shut it. So in that sense, if you have single family or Airbnb managers, et cetera, you can all control it even from the app. You don't even have to be at the property, and you can just shut the valve off and shut the property. So if you're going to go away and let's say you want to winterize the property and shut the water off for prolonged amount of time because you're not going to be there. You're going on vacation. So you can do that with the system quite easily.
Interesting. So for somebody that has like an Airbnb and they wanted to get this set up, and they wanted like maybe auto water shut off, some gas detection, a couple of the most obvious important ones, what would that roughly cost for them to get that property outfit?
I mean, if let's say we're talking about a single apartment, maybe like a 1 or 2 bedroom, you're probably talking about a one-time cost of anywhere between $300 to $500 if you're in that kind of situation. If it's slightly bigger, it all depends on the number of sensors. But again, if it's about $70 a sensor, how many points of water do you have in your apartment? And then that's how you do the math.
Got it. So typically sensor per maybe bathroom.
Yeah. You'd put one to 2 per bathroom, right? Depending on how many. If you have a tub or a shower, we typically catch that with another sensor that would be placed nearby, maybe behind a toilet. Sensors are very sleek, non-invasive. They're discreet. They go behind toilets, under sinks, and so on and so forth. And so it's very, very easy to deploy them as well.
Got it. And these don't have cameras on them, right?
No cameras. And as I mentioned, because we use LoRaWAN and it is unable to communicate or transmit large packets of data, it is impossible for me to record someone because the data packets are so small. The amount of data that would need to be transmitted just to record a sentence would take days and days and days. So it is impossible for us to do that.
Well, what else should people know about this solution, or whatever questions do people ask, maybe about ProSentry, and then how can people get in touch with you?
So first of all, I think the most important thing is, we were built by real estate professionals. And so we really understand the industry and we're happy to consult and speak to anyone who has any questions. There's no strings attached, there's no cost for that. We're happy to give proposals, and every building is unique and every building has their unique set of challenges. And so I think it's important for your listeners to know that that's the world that we come from, and we actually enjoy having conversations with real estate professionals. And so if anyone has any questions or wants to discuss, just feel free to reach out. Our website, which is www.prosentry. Contact us or request a proposal. Very easy to get in touch with us, or also info@prosentry.com.
Very cool. So one last question. If somebody goes to your website, they decide they want to get some of this stuff set up for their property, who actually comes out and gets all this stuff set up and installed? Do they have to get a contractor to do it? How does that work?
No, so it is extremely, extremely simple. So we have designed the system so that it is easy to be deployed by the building itself. The system comes pre-configured. So the gateways are the only component that gets plugged in. Those are the routers, right? So you start by plugging those into the wall, into a regular outlet. They turn on in about a minute or so and start communicating. They automatically connect to cellular antennas. They automatically create this internal private network only to that building. So there's no configuration, nothing else to do. And then you take the devices, the sensors themselves, you download our app, you scan a QR code on the device, and all you do is you have a drop-down menu and you say, I am in apartment 22B. It's already pre-configured. We'll configure the apartment. Everything will be there. And you'll say, I'm placing it by the kitchen sink. That's it. That's all you got to do. It automatically connects. The sensors automatically connect. And it's non-invasive. There's no drilling. There's nothing to do there. One of the features that I neglected to mention, but I think is important, is we offer live operator calls to buildings. And so a lot of providers out there will send you like an app notification or maybe an email or a text message, right? And say, hey, but again, property managers, right? We realize that at 2:00 in the morning, no one's looking at their phone to see if you got a text message. So we use an Underwriter Laboratories certified call center with live people, not some robocall. And they will actually call you and say, hey, Jason, you have a leak in apartment 22B in the kitchen under the dishwasher, right? And if you happen not to be answering, we will call the next person online. We can have multiple people. And so we'll call the front desk. The front desk doesn't answer. Maybe the handyman doesn't answer. The resident manager, the property manager, the hotline, the board president, whoever you need. We can put that all under the platform. So that's an important feature and a differentiator, by the way, because there are not many companies that do that.
Well, it sounds like a no-brainer. Sounds very cool. And I recommend everybody check it out at prosentry.com. Cool. Well, Nadav, thanks for coming and hanging out with us here on the DoorGrow Show.
Thanks for having me, Jason. This was fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So for those of you that you felt stuck or stagnant in your property management business, you want to take it to the next level, reach out to us at DoorGrow.com. We can help. And for a free training on how to get unlimited leads for free for your property management business, text the word leads to 512-648-4608. That's the word leads to 512-648. Also, be sure to join our free Facebook community just for property management business owners at DoorGrowClub.com. And if you would like to get the best ideas in property management, you can join our newsletter at DoorGrow.com/subscribe. And if you found this episode even a little bit helpful, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on whatever platform you saw this on. We'd really appreciate it. And until next time, remember, the slowest path to growth is to do it alone. So let's grow together. Bye, everyone.